The thing that they haven't done this year, though, is they haven't done their predictions for where teams finish. I've noticed they stay
Right.
away from that this year.
Well, maybe. Sometimes they'll save that until September.
Yeah, but usually last year they had it in the magazine. No surprise on who they picked to win the Calder, though.
Shock.
Do you know who it is?
Hold off on this. Hold off. Let's let
Okay.
let's let it be surprise.
I'll type it in the chat and see if my guess is correct.
Where teams finish, I've noticed. They stay away from that this year.
Hold on.
Well, maybe.
And then we'll talk about it during the webcast. We should save like little bits of that for every day, not just talk about the whole thing.
Sure.
But check the chat there, Josh.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Like I said, it wasn't a real shocker.
No.
Is he hurt right now?
No.
Okay. He didn't get hurt yesterday.
The runner-up, a little bit of a surprise, though.
Here's my dark horse. I'm typing that in. Sorry to be covert here, everybody, but we want to talk about this, so me spilling the names right now sort of defeats the purpose.
They got him on here, but
I just think with
35 points they have him.
You know what I want to do?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to do our own version of, Hockey News does the 50 most influential people.
Yeah.
I want to do our own version of that.
Am I number one?
No.
Okay.
No. I want to do the 50
Sorry.
most. I want to do the 50 most interesting people in hockey of any kind, like involved in hockey. The 50 most.
One, of course.
What?
I said I'm number one, of course.
Yes.
Jeez. No. It could be players. It could be broadcasters. It could be general managers.
Yes. Could be anything.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, and
No, I mean what I just looked at, but I'll save that.
Okay. Well, you can run the show today, Josh. You want to? Because you got more interesting stuff than we have.
Yeah, that could be interpreted many ways there, Josh.
Yeah. They were very generous with the Leafs, though, Mike. I'll just leave you at that.
Well, let me say it, because we're going to do our own predictions when we get closer to the season. But I've seen a couple people making divisional predictions, and so far I've seen 2 or 3, and every one of them has Toronto finishing just ahead of Buffalo in 7th. Now I don't think they're going to be in the top 2. I think they have an outside chance of being 3rd, and I think that they're in the running for the wild card. But okay, say I have blue and white glasses on. I think Ottawa is going down. Mm-hmm. I think Detroit is slipping. They didn't make any additions, and I think Montreal is worse. So Florida is better. So we have a lot of time to debate this, but
I don't know what Ekblad hurt, but anyway.
I don't think it's going to be serious. It doesn't sound serious.
It's got a concussion.
No, this just feeds into my international bent.
Don Taylor was fired. We won't talk about later. Okay.
No, he switched over to the team 1040.
Okay.
Gig he got. They have a whole thing in this magazine on Corsi numbers, and they actually give you Corsi numbers for each team.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. I've gone to 3 different places that normally has hockey news. The the magazine, and I
It says Corsi Close.
Haven't been able to find
category.
But I'll look.
What does that mean? Corsi Close.
Got me.
You guys got to explain this.
I don't know. Although guys, and this is for anybody out there listening as well. I was given the coolest thing. I mean, we talked about video games a couple times on here before, right? You guys are video game fans too, and did you have like the Nintendos or the Segas or anything like that?
I had Atari back in the day.
Yeah, Atari, right?
I had ColecoVision.
ColecoVision, right? Well,
and Nintendo and Genesis.
Yep, so you had them all, right? You went up the line. What games were you big into? Were you into like violent games, like GTA type games, where you would
more sports games than anything.
More sports games.
I mean, like Blades of Steel, obviously on Nintendo, and NHL on Genesis, and then I got into Tiger Woods, which I kind of still play now on PS3, but I suck at it.
Well, this guy who lives near me is selling this. He's selling. What he does is he mods. I know you guys probably seen this before. In the chat room they may have, but I don't think you guys have. Because I'm gonna judge that you guys wouldn't be in this geeky. This is pretty geeky. He mods an original Xbox, like the original Xboxes, the ones that puts a 240 gigabyte hard drive in, and it has 10,000 games on it.
Wow! So it's like a MAME. It's like
the mother of all memes. It's got every arcade game you've ever seen. It's got every system you've ever seen. So like there's a ColecoVision with every ColecoVision game. There's Nintendo with every Nintendo game, every Sega game, every Genesis game.
Okay, I know what I want for Christmas.
All right, I'm going to get you each one of these. I will. I will send one to you, each of you guys for Christmas.
Because I have the original. I have the original MAME. The one that's
intense, and you put it so it all runs through. It not only has that, it has every Game Boy game, every it's incredible, and the Game Boy games look phenomenal. I mean, they look incredible. So this is just ridiculous. I am completely, and what he charges for it? $140.
Wow.
So it's $140, and I was telling people I bought a Nintendo 64 10 years ago, for $300 or whatever, and I bought all these things, as they're going along. So $140 for every single game ever known. Man, I'm telling you, there's not a game. I could not find a game on this and it's hockey. It has a whole page of 40 hockey games, and so I think that I'm going to invite Kevin again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things that's been nice, going off on a slight tangent here about Netflix free advertising, is the fact that old shows that I used to have on, VHS tape back in the day that I just had single episodes.
Right.
Now I can watch the entire series, like Magnum PI or Miami Vice or.
Right.
And it's so cool to be able to do that. Now there's one show that was my favorite show back in the 80s when I was a kid. With Edward Woodward.
Okay.
And it was the soundtrack was done by Stuart Copeland of The Police. It was phenomenal. And they're coming out with a movie this August with Denzel Washington. That's sort of a reprise of the old series. And because of that, they're going to re-release the seasons of The Equalizer on DVD.
Nice.
The problem is that the rights to the music expired, and they're not going to have the original music. And that was a lot of the
Hey, who owns music that's keeping them from doing this? What idiot artist is
Well, I don't know if it's Stuart Copeland or if it's
probably a record company. It's not an idiot artist. It's probably a record company that probably and someone's no, we'll try to get $20,000 for that or whatever.
Probably A&M, I think it was A&M Records or something like that because that's who he was with. I'm not sure. But all I know is that the original score is gone, and that was
really frustrating. That's stupid. All right, we're gonna get the show started right away because hey, Kevin, how are you?
Hey, good.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
Josh, put up your lower third.
Oh, thanks.
So, Kevin, I'm going to send you. How old is your router? Just out of curiosity.
About a year and a half.
Okay, so that's not too bad. I'm going to send you something. I think I figured out your problem.
Okay. Let me see here. Am I up? No. What do I got
You have
showing?
the lower third, but your other lower third up.
My
Which
other.
is, there it is.
There it is. That's the right one. You're good.
Leave it away. Leave it alone.
I'm
Hey.
actually good. Wow.
Yeah. You should just delete that other one, but not now.
Yeah.
Don't do anything now.
No, I don't want to touch anything.
Nothing.
I've actually moved back to the kitchen, which gives me a little closer to my router. So.
Yeah, and it works way better. So so we know it's something to do with that, and we also. But there's a way. There's a really cool thing I will send you. Now, is there just real quick on your computer that you have there? Is there an Ethernet input, like an Ethernet cable input?
There's gotta
Yeah,
be.
yeah. There's everything's on here. Yeah.
There is an Ethernet input.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So if there's an Ethernet input, you're set. Because what I'll send you is something that plugs out of your router into the wall like a normal outlet.
Yeah.
Plug into the outlet. You plug an Ethernet cable from your router into this outlet thing. You plug a similar thing into an outlet right near your computer in your room. An Ethernet cable out of that into your computer. And what it basically does is it uses your wires of your house as a big long Ethernet cable. So it enables you to. Does that make sense?
Wouldn't it be more fun if I just had an 89-foot Ethernet cable?
I can do that too. I have a friend of mine who did a podcast like that for 4 years and literally had a big blue cable that ran through his house. I would go over there and I would see it, and it would be like people would trip over it, and he would always take it down after the podcast. And then after a while, he just got sick of taking it down, so it would just be a part of the house.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Okay.
Use it as a lasso.
I bow to your expertise, so
I will send it.
you send it, I'll hook it up. I'll be ready to go. I
Yep.
got my microphone set up. A lot of news today, with the Hall of Fame and the.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I don't want to start with you with the Hall of Fame. We'll go right to you, and you can talk about that, because I don't know what that is, because I've been running around like an idiot.
All right.
Hey, Kevin, did you pick up the Hockey News prediction magazine yet?
No, I've not. What's the shocking about it?
We'll get into that, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting ones in here.
Let's start the show.
That's for
Two
sure.
things. We'll talk about that. You start with the Hall of Fame, Kevin, and then we'll go to Josh on the. We'll go to Josh on the Hockey News stuff, and then I'll do other things.
Me, Kevin, and Josh.
Yep.
Before we start the show,
Yeah.
quick trivia question. Who had the best points per game last year in the NHL?
Points per game? What's the minimum?
Probably like 40 games or 50 games, something like that, right?
Well, they have people with 45 games played.
I'll call it 40.
Wow, Zetterberg only played 45 games. Anyway, yeah. Who had the best points per game?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
All right, well, good. We'll tease people with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep that, Josh, okay? So it's going to be Mike, Kevin, Josh, in that order. Ready?
Yep.
Got
Wednesday, August 6th.
Fantastic. Hey, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, August 6th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen.
I'm tanned Josh Rimmer.
And I'm pinkish, short of Ekblad. And you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. And Josh, you're back from Florida. How was it, man?
It was good. It was hot. I have to keep applying aloe to my back because I guess I missed a big chunk of on my back from putting suntan lotion on. So it's been difficulty sleeping. But besides that, the wedding went well, and
Nice.
got to hang out with some hockey people down there as they were friends with my parents. Got to see Brian Ingblom. I haven't seen him in a while, and hung out with Doug McLean, and he's always a ride, especially after a few glasses of wine. And
Isn't that a movie, an independent movie, Doug McLean after a few glasses of wine? Josh, go ahead. Yeah.
And Michael Russo as well.
Right.
So it was
right, because he was a Florida. He was the Florida reporter for a long time.
so it was good to hang out with those people.
Englund used to write for Hockey Buzz.
Really? I didn't know that.
He did. He wrote for Hockey Buzz for a spell there.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Kevin, people think that you should have the men's room icon behind you on the wall. I don't think that's fair. But I think it's pretty funny. All right, so let's get right to it, Kevin. Some Hall of Fame stuff going down right now.
Yeah, no. Today, the announcement from the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. The class includes Brian Rafalski, who played 11 seasons in the NHL, a puck-moving defenseman, always, in my opinion, underrated as a defensive player, even though he was known for his transition game and moving the puck out of the zone. With both New Jersey and Detroit, He was a good one-on-one defender. Like, when I think of Rafalski, what I think is that squeeze move along the boards, as guys would carry the puck over the zone, and he would just rub them out along the boards in a very effective manner, not in a Scott Stevens, I'm going to take your head off manner, but in a very effective, I'm just going to take you out of the play. So I thought he was underrated as a defensive player, but mostly will be known for his ability to get the puck out of danger and get it up to the forwards. Crucial, essential contributor to the 2010 U.S. Silver Medal team. I thought he was probably in their top 2 or 3 players, and that really made a difference on that team. And they were looking to replace Brian Rafalski in 2014. That was one of the the constant thoughts when they were trying to put together a team is who's going to be Brian Rafalski, and I'm not sure they ever found him. He was such a unique player on that 2010 team. And then others going in with that 2014 class, Karin Bai Dietz, who was a power forward, played alongside Cami Granato on that 1998 Olympic gold medal team that won the first women's championship in Olympics. Then also going in, Lou Vero, who was a former Devils coach, but probably known for the having to follow up Herb Brooks in the 1984 Olympic coach.
Yeah.
He's been involved with USA Hockey since the 1970s. Has really watched the growth. Just a great ambassador for the sport. Like, there's no better storyteller. Like, he's a Hall of Fame storyteller in addition to everything else.
Yeah, I heard that.
Basically self-made. Came out of Brooklyn. It's not exactly a hockey hotbed.
Right.
Didn't play a high level of organized hockey, but made himself into a great coach. Has a really funny story of him and the great Fred Shiro in Moscow going to a hockey camp and getting in line for what they think is coffee. They're queuing up for a long wait, well over an hour, and they get up to the stand, and it's not coffee but rutabagas that they're selling. And so didn't get his coffee. And then the final person going in is Jeff Sauer, 40-year coach, I think 7th on college hockey's all-time wins list, 650 wins. Just recently took the sled hockey team, the U.S. national sled hockey team, to the Paralympic title. So, and again, another great ambassador for the sport. Coached a lot of great players, including Rafalski, including Chris Chelios, won 2 national championships at Wisconsin. So, pretty good class. Doesn't have some of the name players that we've had in the past other than Rafalski, but I think this is a pretty good class.
That's a great class, and it's good. These are guys that definitely need to be recognized. I mean, this is this American hockey is where it is today. But these are builders. A lot of these guys. I mean, these are builder, and and in women's hockey as well. I mean, women's hockey is just taking off around where I am now. There's a lot of women's leagues starting up. I was telling my wife it's easier for her to find a league to play in than for me around here right now. It's crazy. I mean, there's no, I can't find a league for me to play in, but there's 2 or 3 for her.
I think too, Karin Bai's entrance into the Hall of Fame too is almost symbolic of the growth of women's sport. Like, that's so many sports have stagnated. It's they're not growing anymore. They are what they are. But women's hockey is still growing, particularly in the non-traditional markets. But as she said today, I asked her, if she could just use the backdrop of women's hockey to talk about, this maybe, could she have ever imagined that she would enter the Hall of Fame? And, she was talking about being back in the 1990s and being part of the women's hockey when it was just growing up. She never could have envisioned that she would be, judged, right alongside players like Brian Rafalski. So I think it's really sort of a good indication that the hockey, both the Hockey Hall of Fame and the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, now judge women players and as in comparison to their peers, just the way they do the men's. And I think they've started to get the right. This selection of Bai, in my opinion, is overdue. She was Cami Granato was certainly the queen of the sport, but Bai was every bit as dominant as Granato was. I mean, she was a power forward. She was actually already in the IIHF Hall of Fame, so they recognized her before the U.S. did as well. So, again, great class, and I think this is important for women's hockey that Bai is in.
Hugely important, and Rafalski, yeah, I mean, just he was a flyer killer, as a Devil. So in Philadelphia, he wasn't underrated around here, but I do get the feeling that he was underrated in other places. But he definitely, along with Niedermeyer and Stevens, made for that Devils team. Is one of the great, teams, one of the controversial teams, the Trap Devils team. But that was the team that really completely just dominated, and throw that Brodeur in front behind those guys, and you just had a ridiculous, and then Danyenko too. I mean, they had some players on that team, and they were just tough to beat.
He was the perfect complement to the stay-at-home guys that the Devils had. Daneyko and Colin White and Stevens. I mean, him and Niedermeyer were the guys who moved the puck. And then he went to Detroit, and he played this in the latter half of his career and still played very effectively. And like Kevin said, in 2010, that game against Team Canada, not the final, not the gold medal game, but the game in the round robin when they faced Canada and beat them, I think it was 5-3. He was the best player on the ice for the U.S. He was dominant in that game, and that gave the U.S. some hope going into the gold medal game, which of course was crushed when Sidney Crosby scored the goal. But great player, and he deserved the honor that he just received.
Such a smooth player, and so hard to be, and obviously the underratedness comes from the fact that he played with maybe the top two defensemen of the last 50 years in his career, playing with Niedermeyer and Lidstrom.
Yeah,
I mean, you're never going to shine as the best, offensive two-way or any defenseman when you're playing with Niedermeyer and Lidstrom. But if he had played on another team, if he had been a Flyer, he'd be up there with Mark Howe. He'd be up there with all the best. I mean, he was that good. So I'm very happy for Rafalski.
And it really did show, what kind of ability he had, because Ryan Suter just wasn't as effective in 2014 as he was in 2010. I mean, he really wasn't, and maybe that had more to do with Ryan Suter, but it also, you got to have the right partner to complement you, and they struggled to find that guy, and for whatever reason, just Suter wasn't as effective as he was when he was playing with Rafalski. It's like he was a great compliment for Suter.
Last thing, Rafalski, my favorite Rafalski story was talking to him. I remember when in 2010 in Vancouver, the one game that the Team Canada played, they played Marty Brodeur, right? Marty Brodeur played that one game for them in Team Canada, and they just had all kinds of troubles, right? Canada had issues. I'm trying to remember how that game ended up, but I remember it wasn't, anything spectacular. My memory's going, but what I remember is talking to Rafalski later in that day and saying, what do you think happened with Marty in that Canadian game, in the Canada game? And he said to me what I thought, was, and kind of reiterated what I was thinking already, is that Team Canada was not playing defense like you have to play defense around Marty Brodeur, and Rafalski was sharp on this kind of stuff, and he said you don't go back to get the puck, you wait for the puck to come to you, you don't have to go, he's not going to hand the puck off to you, you can stay in the corner, he's going to pass the puck to you, things like that. And what happened is, remember, there was a couple mix-ups behind the Canadian goal in that game, and it was surprising. One was even Niedermeyer, who should know this better than anybody. But I remember that being an issue, and Rafalski pointing it out right away. So yeah, he's a sharp sharp guy.
Well, the other interesting aspect of him is, and Ek, you and I have discussed this at length. My opinion. I don't think when we get to the end of these fake contracts, everybody assumes these players are going to walk away from these $1 million salaries.
Right.
I say no way. It's not going to happen. I've covered the league a long time, and historically, players don't walk away from money. If someone will give you $500,000 to play when you're 42 years old, I think you're going to take it, and I think that's what's going to happen. But saying all that, Tim Thomas walked away from money, and Brian Rafalski walked away from big money. Like I used to say nobody ever walks away from money on the table, but Rafalski did at the end of his contract. He had enough, and he said he was ready to quit, and I believe it was the $5 or $6 million.
It was a big deal, and oddly enough, those two represented by the same agency, Acme Sports. Both Thomas and Rafalski, and it's an agency that I've always kind of respected in the fact that they'd sort of have it's they've got a couple of agents there. One was Bill Zito, one was Marcus, who's now there. He's really good. And yeah, they tend to look for their players. They look, and one of their players also is Kimmo Timonen, who we talked about yesterday. And that was the other story we should discuss briefly. It was right at the end of our show, and right after our show, literally a couple minutes after the show, I got word that Del Zotto was going to be a Flyer, and it didn't end up signing there till 8:30 at night last night. But I think it's a good move for the Flyers. I mean, 1.3 is the move they had to make because Kimmo Timonen's offensive prowess was usually important to them. They needed an offensive defenseman. They're okay. They don't need a hitting defenseman necessarily. They've got some big defensemen right now. They've got Luke Schenn. They've got Grossman. They've got players who can hit. So they needed some transition. And Hextall was pretty adamant about how hard Del Zotto has worked out this year and how serious Del Zotto is taking this offseason, realizing that this is kind of the second chance. So $1.3 million. We've talked a lot about Del Zotto, but that 1.3 1-year deal is not bad. I mean, it could have been worse. Josh, what did you think of the signing?
Well, I mean, obviously with Timonen going down, I mean that was a huge gain for Del Zotto because he was waiting a while to be signed, and not a lot of teams were really offering him anywhere close to what he wanted. I heard there were a few lowball offers out there by some teams that they wanted him to come and prove himself, and he felt that he could get a deal for over $1 million, and I think this kid is a wild card. Mm-hmm. I think he's got high upside if he could put it together. I think he can put up 40, 45 points on the blue line. He could be an offensive defenseman threat. Obviously, a lot of people have felt that his defensive game has been pretty bad over the last couple of years, but I think it's a great signing for Philadelphia. I mean, he can definitely pan out and be a top guy there in Philly.
Yep. And Mike, thoughts on this one?
I think the Flyers are very fortunate that Del Zotto is still on the market. I mean, yeah. the situation with Timonen is, I mean, I don't know if it's dire, but it's very questionable based on his health status right now, whether he's going to be able to play. And Del Zotto at his best, I think, is a top 4 defenseman, at least offensively. As Josh said, defensively he's a bit of a concern, but they're going to give him playing time. I think that he was probably getting offered less, like $850,000. And once this Timonen situation happened with the Flyers, they needed to get him signed, so they boosted up the offer a bit. And like I said, I think he could be a very good cost-effective signing for the Flyers. But I would definitely pair him with somebody like Luke Schenn or somebody who's more defensive-minded, because I think he needs to be the guy who's the attacking defenseman and not the defending defenseman.
Yeah, they won't be putting him with there's certain players they definitely have to put him with. And the other big news today, before we get to the hockey news preview, which is we got some good stuff from Josh, has some good stuff from. The other big news today is, of course, if you haven't heard, Aaron Ekblad last night getting hurt. This brings up a whole bunch of debates. An hour ago, Dale Talon made a statement, and this is how it reads. As announced earlier today by Team Canada, defenseman Aaron Ekblad suffered a concussion during an exhibition game last night. We have been in communication with Team Canada and have mutually agreed to hold Aaron out of the remainder of the summer development camp as a precautionary measure. We will closely monitor Aaron's health for the remainder of the offseason and expect him to be ready for our rookie camp in mid-September. Of course, it's good that it's not too serious. The bad thing is it's just a concussion. Like a concussion just scare the hell out of everybody. Mm-hmm. How serious? It was against Team Czechoslovakia, or Team Czech. Sorry, the Czech team, not Czechoslovakia. Obviously, they haven't merged the countries back together yet. No, it was against Team Czech. And but the problem here, is this brings up why was Aaron Ekblad playing in this game? Do people think that Ekblad is going to be playing for Team Canada in the World Juniors? Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I never get excited about injuries that occur when players are involved in the junior program or everything else, because just as many guys get hurt just working out. Are we going to not have players work out during the off season. I mean, they crush their Achilles when they're working out.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
hurt their shoulders. I mean, over the last 8 or 10 years, you can certainly come up with a decent list of players who have been hurt severely working out. So, if you're going to be a pro player, you're going to get involved in competition in the summer because it makes a young player like Ekblad better.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't seem all that serious. He had a concussion, and so they're going to be careful on him. That's the way to handle it. But yeah. I certainly wouldn't want this to suddenly become a case where teams are going to say, well, our players shouldn't go and be involved in these summer games, because that's how they get better.
It is how they get better, and it is impossible, like you said, to monitor against injuries. And athletes, I mean, and we deal with this at every sort of level. I have a girls soccer team that I coach, and you could sit there and tell my daughter had a big tournament last weekend, and she was going to camp, and they had a big color war type thing going on, and she's the goalie of the tournament. If she gets hurt, the team's basically in trouble. And she's going to camp. She's like, Dad, should I not take place in this color war because I don't want to? I'm like, no, you're a kid. Just go out and play. If you get hurt, you get hurt. You're going to get hurt doing something. You can't live in fear as an athlete of getting hurt in any situation. I mean, I agree. And Mike, your thoughts?
Well, okay.
I know you're going to take the other side, so that's why I went to you.
Well, right. I don't have a complaint with Ekblad participating in the summer camp for Team Canada if the Panthers were going to leave him in Barrie for another year. But apparently, from everything that I've heard, he's going to make the Panthers. So, why is he participating? I mean, is it going to be something where he's going to be with the Panthers until December, and then they're going to loan him to Team Canada for the World Juniors, which is in Montreal and Toronto this year? I mean, either he's going to be a player for that team, or he's going to be a player in the OHL and for Canada. I mean, if he's going to be with the Panthers, I would think that they would want him for their rookie camp, their rookie tournament, wherever that's going to be, for their preseason. They've got him under contract. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as you know, I'm one of these people who, if Eric Stahl gets hurt at the World Championships, or players get hurt in the Olympics like John Tavares did, I mean, I can understand and sympathize with the organizations that say, okay, this is our investment. Now, Dale Talon doesn't seem to have a problem with this, and this is a minor thing. It doesn't seem this is going to have any kind of consequence going forward. But what if Ekblad blew out his knee? I mean, that would have an effect on that organization.
Kev?
Mike, yeah, I just can't even accept that logic. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. So we are not going to have rookie league games now. Are we not going to have hitting in training camp? I mean, players got to play. Players got to play. I mean, you can carry this too far. He's a young player. It's traditional for these players to go in the summer and play in these tournament games. They're playing against the top players in the world. 10 years from now, he'll be playing against these same players at the at the NHL level, and when everybody is superstars. So you can worry too much about this. But if he wasn't doing this, he might be water skiing, and a ski may come off and hit him in the head, and he could get hurt that way and suffer a concussion. These things happen. If you start, I mean, I get when they don't want you to go skydiving or take part in, but he's trying to become a better hockey player, and it's no different than working out. And I don't know, maybe the odds are greater in a competition. Probably that's true, but I think we can worry too much about it. It's the same thing in the NFL. Are they not going to have hitting in preseason games because they're worried about guys getting hurt? Well, they're going to worry about it, but they're still going to do it because that's how you get ready. How Ekblad gets ready for the season as he plays in these games in the summer. So I don't. I get the worry, but I don't see anything can be done about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, and the NFL actually does have weird rules about things like this, don't they? They have in the warm-up camps and things like that, like you can only hit certain amounts, you can only do a certain number of days in pads and different things like that.
Yeah. Well, they have a rule for how long you could be on the field and stuff like that.
Right. I mean that's because there's been some deaths with players overheating and things of that nature, and they're doing a lot less hitting with pads. But in baseball and in football, there is contractual limitations. I mean, for example, Bills linebacker Kiko Alonso blew out his ACL, and he's out for the entire season. And he said it was, quote, working out, unquote. There's been speculation that he was doing it, that he was playing basketball and blew out his knee that way. And if he did that, the Bills would have the right to not abrogate the contract, but not pay him because he was doing something that was barred from his contract, just like Aaron Boone a decade ago playing basketball, and the New York Yankees completely got out of his contract, and that led to them trading for Alex Rodriguez. So things like that happen.
Yeah, they do. They do. It's a tough call. All right, so Josh, let's go to happier things.
Yes.
Including the hockey news. You don't want to keep bring people down on this lovely August day. So, Josh, tell us some fun things about the hockey news. This is of course, one of the great issues of the NHL season. You know, like the hockey news. Here we go. There, you can see it there. It's the Ultimate Fantasy Pool Guide. A lot of fantasy pools, including the one I'm involved with, uses this as basically the Bible for what position a player can be drafted at.
Yes.
This is how it's always been done, and we talked last week a little bit when we had Paige on about their top 10 scorers, and there were kind of some shocking things. But what has taken you by surprise so far, Josh? Give us something to go on here.
Well, when we had Paige on and we were giving the predictions, a couple of the names that you guys were throwing out were just outside the top 10. You guys kept saying Corey Perry. Corey Perry is ranked 12 with 80 points, 40 goals, 40 assists. 13th Sagan, 35 and 45 for 80 points.
Okay.
And your boy Echo, you've been saying was going to be a top 10 scorer, Nathan McKinnon. They got him at 80 points in 80 games.
Okay. I still will take anyone's money on Nathan McKinnon being a top 10 scorer this year.
And how about Erik Karlsson? 77 points in 78 games. They're predicting for Erik Karlsson.
That's because he'll play 35 minutes a game for Ottawa.
Yeah.
Well, that's plenty.
That's just insane. Patrick Kane down to 20th in playing only 75 games, 33 goals, 41 assists. Eric Stahl's in here at 74 points. Ryan Johansson, they have him down at 70 points, 35 goals, 35 assists.
Well, he has to sign a deal first.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think it's not too far.
Yeah.
St. Louis, 70 points in 80 games. Kopitar, 70.
Whoa. There's my first one that I really don't. I'm not sold on St. Louis 70 points this year. I mean that. Yeah. I mean he came in last year. I mean, Kevin, any of these players so far surprising you?
No. I think all. I mean, I know your point. He's an older player. But he's going to be, if he stays healthy, he's going to be 65, 70 points.
Okay.
How about Thomas Vanek? 66 points in 75 games in Minnesota.
All right, there's another one.
I think he'll
take the under on that.
I'll take the over on that. I still have confidence that Thomas Vanek can score if he stays healthy. I think he can score 30 to 35 goals and have as many or more assists. I think I'm a Thomas Vanek believer, and believe me, I'm not. Me being in Buffalo has nothing to do with it because I'm not a fan of the Sabres, but I believe in the quality of the player.
The older guys, they're pretty high on here. They have Iginla playing 77 games, scoring 61 points, and Jágr playing 80 games and putting up 60 points.
Well, I mean, Jágr is going to get first line ice time with the Devils, probably.
Yeah, but 80 games for Jágr, that's a lot. I mean, because he's notorious, got back issues and other things going on there too.
I don't know though. Jágr's such a freak of nature.
Yeah, he is.
He's phenomenal. I mean, that's the word I would use for him to play at the level he does with the body he has. Like, you expect 40-year-old guys, not big, bulky guys like Jágr, to last as long as he has. And he's still got game. He's got moves. He's slick.
He's still like one of the top maybe 5 to 10 players. And of course, in his prime, he was the best ever at shielding the puck, with his body. But
Would you guys say that he was at his happiest too last year that you've seen him in a while?
Yes. I think he's sort of come to some sort of, come to God, so to speak. He feels like, go ahead.
I think he's been happy since he turned about 35. When he lost his youth, and he just realized, like, he's really sort of playing for the love of the game now. Like this is a guy that, in my mind, I said to some of my colleagues, like, he should win the Masterton Trophy just because he's symbolic of dedication and perseverance and the passion, the love of the game. Is there anybody who loves playing more than he does?
No.
He just loves playing.
I also heard guys that locomotive crash really shook him pretty good. Losing a few friends in that awful plane crash in Russia. I heard that had a lot to, that really shook him to the core when that happened.
Yeah, that had an effect on a number of people. I know Nikolai Kuhlman who used to be with the Leafs, now with the Islanders, was affected by it. I think Iginla. I mean, what Iginla is going to do in Colorado is all going to be based on who he's going to play with. I mean, he could play with McKinnon, he could play with Ryan O'Reilly, he could play with Duchesne. If you play, I think based on what he did last year playing with Krejci and with Lucic, he can still be an effective scorer. So I don't think 60 points is out of the question. In fact, I think he could get more depending on who his line mates are.
Yeah, that's a high-flying team, They really are an offensive team, and then that's something that's going to be fun. I mean, they could, you could see Danny Briere get some points again this year too, I believe. If he gets on the power play, he could be back up in his point world. But I'll say one more thing about Jágr is that I do agree with you, Kev, that he's inspiring, and it is bizarre in some ways because there's been almost a couple different Jágrs. Feels like a different Jágr came back from Russia for me, like the Jágr before and the Jágr after. But the Jágr that was with the Flyers, especially that I saw closest, the Jágr that basically has the keys to the Zamboni and will drive back to the practice arena at midnight and open up the place to run the Zamboni around and skate on his own. That Jágr really the loss of Jaromir Jágr was an enormous thing for Claude Giroux in Philadelphia last year, and it can't be underplayed. Honestly, it really can't. He was really just, Claude really just looked up to the guy, and players do. I mean, players, they're playing with like a guy that, like, as one player, he told me, I used to play Jaromir Jágr on my Xbox, I mean, they're playing with a legend, and it's hard for them to imagine that they're there, that they're on the ice with him. And even though he doesn't have all the speed he had before, he still has a really, really crafty shot. He's very good at using players as screens on his shot. That's one of the things he does better than almost anyone. He can thread a shot through 4 or 5 legs like no one's business. Yeah, he's got magic.
And he's still great at the side of the net. That's his kitchen. That's where he's still, not standing in front of the net because it would take too much physical abuse, but at the side of the net, either dishing it off to somebody in front or getting a shot on net. That's where he's still extremely dangerous.
And I'll tell you where Jágr got some crap that I didn't think he deserved in the playoffs in that Boston run. Because there were moments that Jágr could have been absolutely heroic. I mean, he hit some posts and overtimes in that series against Chicago and different situations where Jágr could have been, he's having such a hard time scoring, but the guy was getting chance after chance, and there were a couple posts he hit that if they go back the other way, Jágr could have had 2 deciding overtime games in the Stanley Cup final, and people would have been saying, well, he can't play in the playoffs anymore, that was the whole thing. So he was really good in that Stanley Cup final for Boston.
You guys were talking about Colorado and Jarome Iginla. First of all, they have number 1 at Corsi close number, whatever that means. I got to look this up and figure out what that means. But they have him playing on the second line with Nathan McKinnon, Alex Tanguay. That's Iginla. And they have Danny Briere at 25 points.
Yeah, no, I don't think Danny's going to have a huge season, but I just think that he's a power play player, and this is a power play team. So I can see that,
And they also have a really cool thing in here that they're doing this year. It's called Ask the Expert. And they have a panel of Jeff O'Neill, former hockey player, former Leaf, Hurricane, Jamie McLennan with TSN,
right.
Matthew Barnaby, Mike Johnson, PJ Stock, and Kevin Weeks. And they ask them, they call them the experts, and they ask them 20 questions. First of all, let's go to number 20.
Okay.
Who beats who in the Stanley Cup final?
Who beats who in the Stanley Cup final?
Jeff O'Neill says the Blackhawks beat the Flyers in 6.
I'm not prepared to make a Stanley Cup final.
I'm not. I mean, did they ask him this question? Would you rather face one duck-sized horse? No, what's the question? Would you rather face 100 horses the size of ducks, or one duck-sized horse in a battle? That's my question. That somebody asked me the other day. I'm
not going to register that one.
Does 100 duck-sized horses, or one horse-sized duck? This is the question that Reddit's asked, and they've asked Bill Gates this question, and I mean, it's amazing. There are people who go into long, in-depth, like scientists who've given long, in-depth answers as to why, why you would rather face one or the other. So some like the Bill Nye the Science Guy is really awesome. He had a great answer. He's like, listen, this a duck the size of a horse would have very bad circulation and would really have big issues. So there's absolutely no reason, and a bunch of horses the size of ducks would be just terrifying. So anyway, but Josh, that's my question for the experts. I'm gonna tweet each one of them individually that question. But no, continue.
Okay.
Give us something besides that final. What's up?
Okay, here's a good one.
Okay.
Who will be the first coach fired in 2014?
Good question.
Good question. Jeff O'Neill says either Capuano, Randy Carlyle, or Dallas Eakins. All must show early their teams are better than 2013-14. Jamie McLennan says Capuano. Matthew Barnaby says Paul McLean. Mike Johnson, Randy Carlyle. PJ Stock, Randy Carlyle. Kevin Weeks, Randy Carlyle.
Wow. Well, these Toronto-based experts obviously have their issues with Randy.
But yet, all 6 of them say they'll make the playoffs.
All 6 have the Leafs making the playoffs, and yet Randy Carlyle getting fired. That's a good one.
That's why they got him in the playoffs, because they all fired Randy Carlyle.
Right.
First coach fired, too, they're saying.
I would say Eakins is a good bet. Eakins is up there in my mind if I was to pick one. Not to damn a coach before the season starts, but Eakins has definitely got to show something. I was going through the West, and this is a question I have for my 3 experts and all the experts in the chat room. We only have one Toronto-based expert on our panel, by the way. Here's my question. Is there any way that the 5 teams from the Central don't make the playoffs and the 3 teams from California? Are there any other teams? Like, to me, the Western Conference has its 8 teams that are making the playoffs, and it's almost impossible for me to imagine any of the other teams not making it. Like, I think about, to me, that's just, I mean, look at,
You think both wild cards are coming from the Central?
Both wild cards are coming from the Central. So you've got Chicago, St. Louis, Colorado, right?
Minnesota,
and Dallas. Those teams are all making the playoffs. Look, Dallas is going to be very good. They're going to be a really good team. They were this close to being a good team last year, right? And then the 3 teams from California, they're all making the playoffs. So I just go ahead, Josh.
Here's another good question.
Let's follow up on what Eck was just talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it had something to do about.
Oh, go ahead, Josh. Yes, continue.
Oh no, I was going to say which Alberta team,
right,
higher in the standings.
That's a really good question. That is a good question. I think Calgary is going to finish higher in the standings. That's my.
I think
Calgary.
You think Calgary, Kev?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they were actually playing pretty good hockey at the end of last season.
Right.
That could be the end of Eakins then, right?
Yeah.
The end of Eakins, yeah, I think it's the case.
But I think I agree with you on that. The 3 California teams in the Central.
Yeah.
I
mean.
Well, I mean, I think
it's impossible for me to think of how any one of those teams can't make the playoffs.
I mean, all 3 Western Canada teams are probably going to miss the playoffs. I don't think Arizona is really going to challenge. I mean, in the Pacific, it's definitely Anaheim, San Jose, and LA. I mean, I mean, the picture in the West, even though I think the top 8 is stronger than the top 8 in the East, I think it's a little simpler in terms of who makes the playoffs than what's going on back East. I've seen predictions saying the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, and then I see predictions that say Toronto is going to finish 7th in the Atlantic. And
And the other thing about the 8 teams in the West, none of them is an 8th seed in your mind. Like, you look at them and you're like, okay, the first versus the 8th seed, that's going to be. There's no. All 8 of those teams in the West can beat any one of the other 7 teams. So, there's no. Basically, it's just a matter of how you. It's a matter of matchups. Like shuffle the deck and who matches up better against who, right? I mean, that's really, in my opinion, that's how that comes down to. So it's really, I mean. That to me is sad.
There's nothing to add. I agree with you completely on that.
Isn't it weird? I was just thinking about it. I'm doing my predictions. I'm like, I mean, all those teams are going to be good. I mean, they're all going to be better, and there's no way that any of them fall out. Arizona, I think, is going to fall off. We were going to talk about Arizona today, but we got into other things. But I think they're going to fall off a little bit. I think Vancouver's rebuilding. Calgary and Edmonton aren't there yet. And who's that leave us with? No one, right? That's it.
Nashville believes it's going to be better because
Nashville, right?
But they don't really have the offense. I think their defense will be better. I think Laviolette will get the offense to score a few more goals. But Ribeiro and Roy and Jokinen, it's better than what they had, but that's still not. They're not sterling down the middle.
Right, and they'll be good. They would be good enough to make it in the Eastern Conference. Nashville, I believe, no question about it. They'll be a good team. They could have 90+ points and still not make the playoff. They're not going to be a bad team. But yeah, I don't see them being better than any of the California than in their own division. They're not going to crack the top 5. It's kind of crazy. It's just really a tough one. It's a real tough one. But it's a tough division. Josh, any last words?
Yes. The last one I wanted to say is the Calder predictions. Who will finish number 1 and win the Rookie of the Year? Your guys' thoughts before I say who?
That's a good question.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know that sound. I don't know what that is right now. I think that's my phone doing something weird. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I mean, Mike, you guessed it, and I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense because he's a year older than everybody else. And I think it's going to be Jonathan Drouin. I mean, because he's probably going to play with Stamkos. Basically taking over the position that Marty St. Louis had with Stamkos. And if that happens, then he could potentially score 25 to 30 goals. And he's a dynamic young kid, a lot of talent. And with a guy like Stamkos getting him the puck, I think that's that's going to be good.
Yeah.
The Hockey News says that Drouin is actually playing on the second line with Filipula and Kucherov.
We'll see.
They have Callahan playing with Stamkos and Palat. But back to Drouin.
Yep.
Drouin they have at 56 points.
All right.
Number 2, a close second, Evgeny Kuznetsov with 50 points. Then Tanner Pearson with 48.
Evgeny Kuznetsov sounds like one of those fake Russian names, but yeah, continue. Sorry.
Michael Del Cole, 45. Max Domi with 45.
Max Domi, wow, already.
Sam Reinhart with 45. Mark Stone.
Sam Reinhart will not play in the NHL this year.
Yeah.
That's your prediction, right? All right, we do have to go, guys. Time's up, but we appreciate everybody today. You can follow and find Kevin at @ByKevinAllen on Twitter, and of course on the Hockey News every day, writing top-notch stuff. Good to have you back, Josh. You can find Josh at Josh Rimmer Hockey. We'll be back tomorrow with more of this fun stuff. You can find Mike at Mike in Buffalo, and I am Ekblad. And that was a real fast show, guys, but it was action-packed. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your August day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. See ya.